Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. It started on an ordinary Saturday morning, the kind of day that usually passes without meaning. The sky was a flat gray, the sort that promised rain, but never delivered. I was in the garage, rummaging through old boxes trying to find a wrench set I hadn't seen since last summer. My wife, Emily, was out visiting her sister, and the house was silent except for the hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of the old wooden beams. As I moved aside a dusty box labeled Christmas 2018, something small and silver rolled off a shelf and hit the concrete floor with a dull clink. I bent down to pick it up and froze. It was an old smartphone, one I hadn't seen in years. The moment I turned it over in my hand, a strange feeling washed over me. It was Emily's old phone, the one she had lost around the time our marriage had started to fall apart. I remember the arguments we had back then, nights filled with accusations, long silences, and that painful phrase she often repeated, "You never trust me." She had insisted the phone was gone forever, that it must have fallen out somewhere between work and the grocery store. I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to believe her because the alternative, the thought that she was hiding something, was too heavy to carry. Now, years later, there was, covered in dust, battery dead, but still whole. I stared at it for a long time, torn between curiosity and guilt. Part of me whispered, "Don't do it, just throw it away." But another part, the same one that remembered the distance in her eyes and the sudden late nights at the office, told me I had to know. I plugged it into an old charger and waited. The phone lit up faintly with that familiar logo, and my heart started to race. It took longer than usual to boot, like it was reluctant to wake from its long sleep. When the home screen appeared, I hesitated. It felt wrong, like trespassing into someone's diary. But it was my wife, my home, my marriage. Didn't I have the right to understand what had happened back then? The password screen appeared. 4 digits. I took a guess. Our wedding anniversary. Nothing. Her birthday. Still nothing. I tried my own birthday on a whim, and to my surprise, it unlocked. That small detail hit me harder than I expected. She'd used my birthday. Why? A sign of love? Or a way to keep me from ever thinking she had secrets? The phone was old enough that it didn't require fingerprint or face unlock. Once I got in, I was greeted with a familiar wallpaper, our honeymoon picture in Bali. She looked radiant in that photo, smiling under a sunset sky. I remember taking it, thinking how lucky I was. Now, it felt like staring at a ghost. I went through the usual apps first, messages, photos, and social media. Most of them were empty or outdated. But then I found something odd, a folder tucked inside the gallery named Work Docs. My pulse quickened. Inside were hundreds of pictures, most of them screenshots of conversations, and not work-related ones. Texts with someone named E. I opened one at random. E. You'll tell him someday, right? Emily. I can't. Not yet. He'll hate me. E. He deserves the truth. Emily. He deserves peace. My mouth went dry. The dates were from the year she lost this phone. Around the same time we were drifting apart. I scrolled through more messages, and it became clear that E wasn't a woman. There were pictures, half-hidden selfies, snapshots from hotel rooms, blurry images of dinners, and one unmistakable picture of the two of them together. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. I sat on the cold floor, staring at that screen, feeling my chest tighten. My mind tried to deny what my eyes were seeing. I had loved Emily for over a decade. We'd built a life together, shared laughter, tears, and dreams. And yet here, in the palm of my hand, was proof that at some point she had chosen someone else. I don't remember how long I sat there. The world around me blurred into silence. The faint hum of the charger, the ticking of the clock, even the distant sound of birds outside felt unreal. When I finally stood up, I felt hollow. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and stared out the window. Everything looked the same, the lawn, the car, the flowers she planted last spring. But nothing felt the same. For years, I'd told myself that whatever tension existed between us was normal. that marriages go through rough patches, that love changes form but doesn't fade. Now, I wasn't sure if that had ever been true. When Emily came home that evening, I couldn't look at her the same way. She noticed it immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting her purse on the counter. I shook my head, forcing a smile. "Nothing. Just tired." She studied me for a moment, her eyes searching mine, then let it go. She moved about the kitchen, humming softly as she cooked. I watched her, this woman I'd shared my life with, and wondered how many secrets she still carried behind that calm expression. That night, while she slept, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The phone sat hidden in the garage again, tucked inside a drawer, as if putting away could erase what I'd seen. But the truth doesn't stay buried. It lingers like a stain you can't wash off. The next morning, I went back to the garage. The phone was still there, screen black, waiting. I knew I had to see it all. I needed to know how deep the betrayal went. So I sat down, opened the folder again, and began to read from the beginning. The first message between them was almost innocent. Small talk about work, music, and favorite coffee spots. But it didn't stay innocent for long. The tone shifted. Compliments, late-night confessions, plans to meet. And then came the message that made everything real. "Emily, I told him I'm working late. I'll see you at the hotel." That was dated the same night she had texted me. "Don't wait up. I've got a meeting that might run long." I remembered that night vividly. I had waited for her anyway, eating dinner alone, falling asleep on the couch. She came home past midnight, smelling of perfume, claiming she had fallen asleep at her desk. And I had believed her. My hands trembled as I scrolled. There were months' worth of conversations, pictures, promises, even a few arguments that sounded painfully intimate. She had told him things she never told me. Her fears, her doubts, even jokes about my habits. The realization burned. It wasn't just that she had been unfaithful. It was that she had shared the real version of herself with someone else while I got what was left. When I reached the last message, dated just a week before she lost the phone, I saw this. He'll find out eventually. Emily, not if I end it now. I can't live like this. Then nothing. No reply. My mind raced with questions. Did she end the affair because she regretted it? Because she was scared? Or because she thought she could hide it forever? I closed the phone and set it aside. My reflection in the dark screen looked older, heavier. That evening, I sat across from Emily at dinner, watching her talk about her day, her friends, her plans for the weekend. Every smile, every touch, felt rehearsed. Part of me wanted to confront her, to slam the phone down and demand answers. But another part, the exhausted, broken part, wanted to pretend I never found it. Because once you open that door, there's no going back. I went to bed that night without saying a word. By noon tomorrow, I'd have to decide whether to face it with the truth or bury it like she did. The next morning, the sunlight filtering through the curtains felt like an intrusion. I'd barely slept. My mind kept replaying those screenshots, those words. Every detail burned into my thoughts like a brand I couldn't escape. Emily was in the kitchen making coffee, humming the same tune she always did. She looked peaceful, untouched by the storm tearing through me. I stood in the hallway for a moment, just watching her. The same woman I'd loved for years, who now felt like a stranger wearing my wife's face. She noticed me and smiled. "You're up early," she said softly. "Yeah," I muttered, sitting at the table. My voice sounded distant, like someone else's. As she poured the coffee, I kept thinking of the message. Not if I end it now. What did she mean by that? Did she end it out of guilt or just to protect her image? When she handed me the cup, our fingers brushed, and a spark of pain shot through me. For years, I thought I knew her touch, her eyes, her voice. But now every gesture felt like a performance I had unknowingly applauded. I wanted to scream, to ask her how she could look me in the eyes after betraying everything we built. But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to be sure what I would say, of what I truly wanted from the truth. So I stayed quiet. The day passed like a blur. I went through my routines at work, answered emails, nodded through meetings, but my thoughts were chained to that phone waiting in the garage. That evening, after she went to bed, I returned to it again. I sat there under the dim light, scrolling through every last trace of her secret life. I read the text multiple times, as if repetition might make it make sense. Then, tucked in the files, I found something new, a series of voice notes. My pulse quickened as I played the first one. Her voice filled the quiet room, soft, emotional. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore," she said. "I love him, but not the way I should. I keep thinking about the other man, even when I'm home. I hate myself for it." My chest tightened. I played the next one. "He's been so kind lately. I can tell he feels something's off. I wish I could tell him everything, but I'm scared he'll never forgive me." There were several like that. Confessions whispered into a phone, never sent, never deleted. She had been torn, caught between guilt and desire, between truth and fear. Then came the last one. "It's over." I told him it's done. "I'm deleting everything. I just want to move on and fix what I broke. I hope it's not too late." I sat there for a long time after that, the silence pressing down on me. She had ended it. Maybe she did want to rebuild what we had, but that didn't erase what she'd done. The betrayal, the lies, the deceit, it all still happened. I couldn't tell if the ache in my chest was heartbreak or relief. That night, I lay awake again, but this time I wasn't angry, just empty, the kind of emptiness that doesn't scream. It whispers. It asks questions you can't answer. By morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to hide it anymore. When she came into the kitchen, I was already there. The phone sat on the table, screen dark, like a silent witness waiting to speak. She froze when she saw it. The color drained from her face instantly. "Where did you?" she started, but her voice broke. "In the garage," I said quietly. "Found it under a pile of old boxes." She didn't move. Her hands trembled slightly as she stared at it. And in that silence, I saw the truth in her eyes before she even said a word. "You looked through it," she whispered. I nodded. "I did." Tears welled up in her eyes, and for the first time, she didn't try to deny it. She didn't make excuses or twist the story. She just sat down slowly, covering her mouth with her hand. "I thought I'd lost it," she said, her voice shaking. "I didn't mean for you to ever see that." I laughed bitterly. "No, I'm sure you didn't." She looked at me with a kind of sadness I hadn't seen before. It was years ago, before we fixed things. I was lost. I made a mistake. "A mistake?" I repeated, the word heavy on my tongue. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, Emily. Not building another relationship behind my back." She flinched. I know what I did, and I've hated myself every day since." The tears came freely now. "I ended it. I swear to you, I ended it before I lost that phone. I couldn't live with what I'd done. You didn't deserve that." I leaned back, staring at her. "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was scared," she said softly. "Scared you'd leave. Scared I'd destroy the only good thing left in my life. I thought if I could just move forward, if I loved you harder, maybe I could make it right without breaking you." Her words cut deep. There was sincerity in her voice, but sincerity couldn't undo the past. "You broke me anyway," I said quietly. She covered her face, sobbing. For a moment, I almost reached out to comfort her, but my hand stopped midway. Something inside me had changed. I couldn't unsee those messages. I couldn't forget the loneliness of all those nights she'd been with someone else, while I waited clueless, believing her lies. After a long silence, I spoke again. "Do you love me now, Emily?" She nodded instantly. "Yes, more than ever." "But you loved him too, didn't you?" Her lips trembled. "I thought I did. It wasn't real. It was a distraction, a way to feel wanted when I felt invisible at home. But it was never love. Not like what I have with you." Her words hung between us, fragile and painful. I stood up and walked toward the window. The world outside looked the same, yet everything in me felt unfamiliar. "You say you did it because you felt invisible," I said. But did you ever stop to think how invisible I felt when you started drifting away? When you smiled at your phone instead of me? When I asked what was wrong and you said nothing? She didn't answer. The silence stretched so long it became suffocating. Finally, she whispered, "What now?" I didn't have an answer. Part of me wanted to walk away, to free myself from the burden of pretending things could ever be normal again. But another part, the one that still remembered our laughter, our shared dreams, our long nights on the same roof, hesitated. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe I need time. Maybe we both do." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'll give you all the time you need. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." But can betrayal ever truly be fixed? That was the question echoing in my mind. Days passed, then weeks. We spoke little, only about necessary things, bills, groceries, the house. She tried to bridge the distance, cooking my favorite meals, leaving notes, apologizing every chance she got. But no amount of gestures could erase the images etched into my memory. At night, I'd sometimes catch her sitting on the edge of bed, staring at the dark window, crying silently. And though a part of me wanted to hold her, another part stayed frozen, haunted by what she had done. One evening, I found her standing in the garage. The phone was in her hands again. "I'm going to get rid of it," she said softly. "I can't look at it anymore. It's like it's holding me hostage." I looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Do what you need to." She placed it in a small metal box, shut it tightly, and walked outside to the trash bin. I watched in the doorway as she dropped it in, her hands trembling, tears falling down her cheeks. That night, I didn't sleep, but I didn't cry either. I just sat there, thinking about how fragile love is, how one secret can shatter years of trust. In time, we began to talk again, not about the affair, but about everything else. We went to counseling. We tried to rebuild what was broken, piece by piece. Some days felt normal. Others didn't. There were moments when I saw glimpses of the woman I fell in love with, the warmth in her laughter, the softness in her touch. But there were also moments when the memories of her betrayal came flooding back, and the distance returned. Forgiveness, I learned, isn't a single act. It's a process, a slow, painful one. Months later, we took a walk to the same park where we had our first date. The air smelled of rain and autumn leaves. She stopped beside the lake and turned to me, eyes red but hopeful. "Do you think we'll ever be okay again?" she asked. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see just the woman who betrayed me. I saw the woman who was trying to make it right. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'm willing to try." She took my hand, hesitantly, like she wasn't sure she had the right to, and I let her. We walked in silence, side by side, not as husband and wife trying to forget the past, but as two people trying to rebuild something new from its ashes. Even now, sometimes when I'm alone, the memory of that day in the garage comes back. The dust, the silence, the glow of the charging phone. It reminds me how truth hides in the quietest corners, waiting to be found. And though the discovery shattered the illusion of our perfect life, maybe it also gave us something real, a chance to face what we both ignored for too long. Because sometimes, finding what was hidden doesn't destroy you. It frees you.